Dear friends, this is Bishop Daniel Thomas of the Diocese of Toledo. Please join me now in praying together our diocesan prayer. Heavenly Father, with the redeeming cross of Christ Jesus, your Son, and the gifts of your Holy Spirit, renew and strengthen us, so that by our prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, we may foster holy disciples, holy families, and holy vocations, so as to become a more holy diocese of Toledo. We turn to Our Lady, Queen of the Most Holy Rosary, for her intercession and never-failing prayers. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Annunciation Radio presents Faith Alive, highlighting the many ways Catholic Charities here in the Diocese of Toledo provides love and support for those in need. And now, your host for Faith Alive, Executive Director of Catholic Charities in Toledo, Rodney Schuster.
Hello and welcome to Faith Alive, the program that shares how the love of Jesus Christ is provided through the ministries of Catholic Charities throughout the Diocese of Toledo. I'm your host, Rodney Schuster, Executive Director for Catholic Charities, and I first want to wish all of you and your families a very Merry Christmas season, because the season goes on until the baptism of the Lord, and hope you have a very happy and healthy being the key word, New Year coming into this year of 2023. And how blessed are we to have a program on Annunciation Radio that shares the ministries of Catholic Charities and the great work that we do throughout our 19-county diocese. And I'm just thankful as we enter this new year that we continue to share some of the very impactful stories of lives that are touched and changed at Catholic Charities, as well as, the great work that our team does for so many people. Last year, we helped over 40,000 people throughout the diocese, and it's just amazing in my role to sit back and just see so many people's lives being touched, so many people being cared for, so many people just being treated like Christ, and that often is the beginning of the journey for people's lives to either help them first of all where they're at, or perhaps help them in the next leg of their journey. So I can't think of a better ministry to share today on Annunciation Radio's on our Faith Alive show than the Opportunity Kitchen. Now, the Opportunity Kitchen, for those of you who don't know, is a ministry that we started, 5 or 6 years ago, that we help people who are at risk, people who are struggling, perhaps they're homeless, or they've been struggling with chronic homelessness. Perhaps they're struggling with, financial hardship. Perhaps they're struggling with mental illness. Perhaps they're struggling with addictions. And we found that there's an opportunity there to perhaps help them through this ministry of the Opportunity Kitchen. So to help us learn more about it and share some of the great stories is Byron Wynn, who's our program coordinator for the Opportunity Kitchen. He also is our volunteer coordinator and also helps out at Helping Hands of St. Louis. Byron, welcome to Faith Alive.
Thank you, Rodney. Appreciate it.
And then also we have Saundra Irvine, also known as Chef Saundra, who heads up our classes of the Opportunity Kitchen. Saundra, welcome to Faith Alive.
Thank you, Rodney. Looking forward to talking about the program.
Well, good, because we want to learn about it. So, Byron, you're kind of the brainchild of the Opportunity Kitchen as to you thought that this ministry could be a way to reach people who are perhaps struggling and give them an opportunity that they otherwise would not have.
I came out of one of my prior employers was the juvenile court, and working with kids and trying to get them their values and their behaviors aligned so that they could lead productive lives and reduce recidivism. And one of the things I noticed is there are folks where we have family. In my house, we had family game night. I had the great blessing of being able to learn how to cook and sequence things from my grandmother and my mother. Not everybody has that opportunity. So this was really born out of that opportunity to help people that maybe didn't have that chance or those things. And we jokingly say this is secretly a Six Sigma program with a food budget. And we found that people are much more receptive to instruction and sharing and opening up and sharing some of their barriers when we sit down family-style meal. What's one of the brilliant things that Saundra does in class is after the classroom session and the hands-on session, we all sit down for family meal. And frequently we will have guests and visitors come in, and it's really a chance to open up and learn about them as people. One of the challenges I think that we all face is just seeing each other as people of faith, or just seeing each other as the humans that we are. And this really provides an opportunity, a safe space for folks to both learn, and for folks that might be homeless to be seen or to hear their name or to learn those skills.
So why did you think that the Opportunity Kitchen would be that potential, class opportunity for people to break free from where they're at to get to the next step in their life journey?
There's, and I can geek out quite a bit. There's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the very basic level, there's oxygen, there's food, and the higher up you get into wanting fellowship and things. And it's for me, it was hard working with kids in the juvenile court, dealing with abstract things when they had an empty stomach. I said, well, why don't we combine some of these things? And was able to find Saundra Irvine, who shared some of the same ideas about how to reach people. She's run an inner city tennis camp and things like that. So she's got the chops and understands the grace that it takes to approach and to grow some of these folks. And it's not a white knight program. We're not there to save people. We're there to help them learn the processes that they can use in their lives. Making a recipe. There's a beginning, middle, and end. If you add salt instead of sugar, what's nice is in our class, the feedback's immediate. When I was doing work with urban gardening, you've got a 3-month time horizon. You put a seed in, and then you stretch that out, and then the payoff's in 3 months. For a lot of people that are just going from insult or injury to injury, that a 3-month time horizon is beyond their scope of things. So we try and slow things down, do things in a methodical way, teach them process and systems, and say, look, you don't have to reinvent your life every day. You have routines, and that's what a recipe is. It's a system and a routine, and these can apply to other parts of your life. And then inviting people to that table.
You're listening to Faith Alive. Our guests are Byron Wynn, who's the program coordinator for the Opportunity Kitchen, and Saundra Irvine, who's the Chef Saundra, who does the actual instruction of the Opportunity Kitchen. So, Saundra, while we are providing the most, important and necessary culinary skills, I think what you've learned, what Byron's learned, what we've learned as an agency is that through these classes, this program is so much more than just somebody getting some really necessary skills and being certified.
Well, when we wrote the program, we decided that we were going to be very process-oriented. We call it a compassionate boot camp, and boot camp can have a connotation of something negative or overzealous. However, what we did was go around and studied other programs nationally as well as locally, and took the best of some of those programs. And quite a few of the programs we decided were box-checking programs where they were going through the motions. So the task then that we had was, how were we going to write a program that was effectively in 10 weeks, twice a week, 18 classes, going to give enough rich content by doing classroom time and hands-on time, melding it together. And then as we went along, we learned we have a caseworker assigned for many of our students, because we thought in the beginning we're two hands together to lift people up. We consider ourselves a catalyst, just like a diving board. You jump up and you have something to help spring you forward. But what we learned was we were really only half of it. A lot of it had to do with what is going on at home. We have people in our program with moderate to severe barriers, not disabilities, but barriers, as you had highlighted in the beginning. So it could be anything from extreme poverty to quite a bit of trauma and abuse, former incarceration. So by virtue of them coming from so many different backgrounds, we realized we do have to look at the students and approach them on a case-by-case basis, even though we're training in mass. So as we wrote it, we said to ourselves, and people still say it to me, "Oh, you're still teaching cooking." Well, we are, but we are teaching process, and our students come in and hear the word process literally 100 times over the course of 18 classes. So yes, many of them will go on from our absolutely classical professional culinary program training. I've written the program patterned after Culinary Institute of America and Johnson and Wales, but we are teaching them process so they have the confidence, understanding of what processes are, working as an individual, working as a team member, working under ramped up from the beginning toward the end of deadline pressure. Very important, because pressure affects our students to where they may not react so well in the workplace. We have assumptions of how we all go into the workplace and can handle various situations. They do not. So we want them to be completely trained as they come in through the program, through these processes, and then go into other things. We have one right now from our fall course, which began in September and ended right before Thanksgiving. And I watched this individual who was sex trafficked and escaped back to Toledo take these, 23 years old, take these incredible notes in this incredible recall. So every 18 classes, I'm absorbing this because we're really studying each individual as a ministry and not lumping them in. And I kept saying, what would you like to do?
Hey, hold that
and we'll come
thought,
back and talk about Erica.
We'll talk about Erica in a little bit. You're listening to Faith Alive, and we're talking about the Opportunity Kitchen, one of the 13 ministries of Catholic Charities. We'll be right back.
Thinking about separation or divorce? Retrovi is a Christian peer ministry designed to help troubled couples regain the health of their marriage. It helps spouses reawaken the love, trust, and commitment that originally brought them together. Retrovi has helped tens of thousands of couples around the world. To learn more about Retrovi or to register for a weekend near you, call 1-800-470-2230 or visit us on the web at www.helpourmarriage.com.
Hello, friends. My name is Peter Range. I'm the Executive Director of Ohio Right to Life. With recent news coming out of the Supreme Court concerning Roe v. Wade, we want moms, dads, and babies in unexpected pregnancies to know we in the pro-life movement stand ready to serve you. With well over 100 pregnancy resource centers and thousands of churches, social service agencies, and communities of faith ready to walk with you, you should know you are not alone. If you'd like to know more to help moms, dads, or advocate for the preborn, visit us at ohiolife.org.
The Lord, in His mercy and love, seeks to liberate each one of us from the chains that bind us in our day-to-day lives. Welcoming Jesus into your home as King, Savior, and friend through the enthronement of the Sacred Heart of Jesus is a conscious decision to place Jesus at the center of your life and home. To enthrone your home to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, go to welcomehisheart.com. That's welcomehisheart.com.
Now, back to Faith Alive with Rodney Schuster, Executive Director of Catholic Charities here in the Diocese of Toledo.
Welcome back to Faith Alive. I'm your host, Rodney Schuster. Our guests this week are Byron Wynn and Saundra Irvine. When we're talking about the Opportunity Kitchen, one of the neat programs that Catholic Charities has, and one of the newer programs that we offer at Catholic Charities to really help people at risk to provide those life skills through the gateway of culinary skills. But as we talked before break, so much more. So, Saundra, before we went to break, you were talking about someone whose life, was a little bit in disarray, and when she came to us, and then our role in helping her, not only through the class, but in so many more ways.
So we had been speaking about Erica, who had previously undergone sex trafficking and escaped to come back to her hometown of Toledo. And as we had gone along over the 18 classes, we noticed how meticulous she was in her care for her note-taking and recall and so forth. We had asked her what she wants to do. And just to digress for a second, we do many drills and workforce development teaching. We literally teach executive training, corporate executive training. And we used to do an opening at one of the first classes where we would say, let's go around the room and tell us what your dream is of where you'd like to be. Well, we discontinued doing it because, sadly, they would stare at you and say, oh, I don't have any dreams because I don't allow myself to dream. And that teaches us, we listen a lot to what our students are going through so that we can tailor to them. She is, and I think we were referencing that not everybody goes into culinary. That's where we kind of began, that we teach processes so they can be successful anywhere with workforce skills and behaviors. And she said, you know what I'd really like to do? And this was quite a bit in, because trust has to be developed, the confidence of processes they've learned. And she said, I want to be a paralegal. And we said, you know what? We're going to try to make this happen. And through our caseworkers and other programs of, scholarship and so forth, we're going to be getting her into, and we're working on vigorously that at this point in time. But our caseworkers also are working with things with some of our students where they need to take public transportation, and they may have a fear of that because that particular individual has a fear because they were whisked away on a bus to sex trafficking. So now we have to deal with that. So if I could just go over a couple of things. We really have to train doubly. We train in the culinary. I mean, they really understand culinary when they leave. French classical culinary. It's all about it. But those skills that they're learning double for everything else. Could you learn it with, welding, office skills? Probably, but not to the degree of this. We had another student come who was an RN in 8 years in the, I don't want to name the hospital chain, but the big hospital chain in intensive care cardiac. Had 4 children. And then decided they were so young she would take a break. And again, an RN in intensive care cardiac for 8 years. Left, and her husband just proceeded to abuse her on a greater and greater level. Literally, horrible abuse. She fled with her children. She had let her nursing license lapse because of the abuse, and ended up homeless and lost her children. And she was brought to us by a caseworker, and we ended up helping her get into a better shelter because she was being taken advantage of to have a roof put over her head. And we hear that at the Opportunity Kitchen. We act immediately on any of these situations. If they're homeless, if they are under any kind of threat of abuse, we don't say, well, we'll call you in a week. It's immediate phone calls are made so that this individual can be helped as quickly as possible through Catholic Charities.
You're listening to Faith Alive, and our guests this week are Byron Wynn, who's the program coordinator for the Opportunity Kitchen, as well as our volunteer coordinator, and Saundra Irvine, who's the chef who provides the instruction on these 10-week classes. And we've just been listening to a couple of really just impactful stories, and those are just 2 of many, many stories of the people that we've helped through this ministry of the Opportunity Kitchen. Byron, you're the brainchild of this and bringing this forward as a possibility for Catholic Charities. And Saundra's talked about how it's more than just a culinary school. But from your first vision to where it's gone now, have you ever imagined this trajectory to the work that we're doing, the intense case management, the setting people forward for whatever future that might be? Could be in the food industry, could be more, advanced education, could be new jobs. I mean, did you ever envision that would be the path that this program would go?
I am a servant first, and I saw an opportunity at Helping Hands of St. Louis. We had some downtime in the kitchen, said, hey, we had some kids that were coming in from some of the government service programs that were expressing an interest and had some curiosity about food and things. And then I tried, putting something together, and then I had known Saundra from some other things, and she has been the supersonic turbo supercharger for the program and has taken it beyond what my original vision was. And we worked very hard together to make it we can learn. We're learning as we're going along, and what we're learning is a lot of these folks have things that go just beyond process. And so we brought on a mental health organization to help address some of the things that we can't.
Yeah.
But Catholic Charities has a great system that exists. So through Helping Hands of St. Louis, there's the pantry, the food area. We started there on a coffee table in the hallway and quickly grew out of that. And if you've ever been to Helping Hands of St. Louis, you realize how much is shoehorned in all the services that are crammed in there.
The best example of organized chaos that there is.
Absolutely. And
and effective.
Being quite
and
honest,
effective.
we've really outgrown that space. And I know that there are talks about growing it, and I would really like to fold the Opportunity Kitchen back into a new space. But the resources that are given to Catholic Charities and Helping Hands are leveraged to help as many people as possible. And I remember we had lunch when we came on, and you said if we're serving 150 meals a day this year and 300 next year, that's really not an accomplishment.
Right.
We need programs that are transformational, that can change people's lives, and we do that with the Opportunity Kitchen. And I'm blessed to have a partner in Saundra Irvine to be able to take that mustard seed of an idea and help grow it into what it is now.
It's a good partnership of assets. And I remember at one point near the beginning, now we have a solid blueprint. We are solid blueprint. It's held back by nothing but maybe additional financial resources. But I remember sharing with Rodney, we want 10 to 12 people in each course, 10-week course, and we pattern all the other courses that are very successful in the United States. Some are far bigger than us, some are smaller than us, but we crank out just about the same amount of graduates towards,
building on what you're saying.
Towards accept. But what Rodney said to me, and I said, this is way in the beginning 5 years ago, and I said, Rodney, we only have 6 people, and we're trying to get more. And Rodney said, I don't care if we only help one person effectively. Just keep moving forward. One person is one life. And that's when the light bulb went on for me that we have to individualize it. It's certainly as a course representing a goal with goals that we want to meet. We're very goal driven.
Yeah. In transformation of change, if you want to learn about other programs, there's Edwin's in Cleveland. They had an Oscar-nominated short called Knife Skills. It's doing some of the same things. We made a very focused effort on where do we don't want to repeat anything else that's going on in Toledo, so this is the only program of its sort. Owens has a beautiful culinary arts program, but it's very hard for somebody to get there if they don't have a car. We're focused and we're staying in the faith community in Toledo. We're accessible by bus routes and things.
I'm glad you brought up about Owens because that's a minimum of $20,000 to $30,000 investment. Our program is free through our donors, the Catholic Charities, and us at the program work very hard to bring donors in of people who really want to take and donate resources to a program that is hands-on and is effective. So they come through the program with about 100 goals. We view ourselves as an umbrella. There's about 100 goals of workforce behavior, life skills, spiritual. But at the end, our mission at the Opportunity Kitchen, if you're wondering out there, is basically 2 words, sustained employment. And we don't mission drift. So everything there is toward sustained, keeping the job and moving forward towards self-sufficiency. And you might say, well, aren't there other things? All of the goals that we're trying to achieve are towards sustained employment and self-sufficiency because then they can move forward. We also follow our students, and this is very important to note. We follow them for 9 months to prevent recidivism. The follow-up program by our case workers and Byron and I is as important as the program.
Right.
Because they get out there, they get into the workplace, and we have a very scholarly checklist that we call and check in with them on. How's your transportation? How is your child care? How's your health? Are you getting along with everyone at work? These are all reasons for those with trauma and lack of confidence in education, their background, to quit or, in a lot of cases, get let go. But when we follow them, it's amazing how just a little bit of follow-up and a little bit of helping them, they stay.
You're listening to Faith Alive. I'm your host, Rodney Schuster, and this week we're talking about the Opportunity Kitchen, ministry of Catholic Charities, and our guests are Byron Wynn as well as Saundra Irvine. And, I think both of you are hitting on something that really is at the heart of Catholic Charities, and that is we really, stand on, we're not just a handout, we're a hand up. And I think the Opportunity Kitchen is just another example of how we do that. Because when people come to us, we know, as was mentioned, there's not one size fits all. Each person has their own story, their own history, their own background, their own challenges, their own barriers. And to group everybody together as one would be fruitless. So that's where it becomes personalized. That's where it becomes really identifying what those barriers are and not doing it for them. We aren't going to tell people that, hey, we're going to do it for you. We'll take care of it. We'll make these phone calls. We'll do this. No, you have to do it, but we want to walk alongside you, perhaps guide you, perhaps coach you, perhaps mentor you, so you can make those good next decisions, those good right decisions. And I think that is just a beautiful witness of Catholic Charities throughout our diocese that we really, lean on, that we want people to realize their gifts that God's given them, to realize their talents that God's given them, and, to help them, break free from whatever's preventing them from doing those great things in their lives. And I think that's where, the case management is so critical, because that way there's a source for the people that we're working with to go to, and it could just, I think some of us don't have that frame of reference. Many of us are so blessed beyond measure that we have resources. We know where to go to get answers, to get help, to get support. And many of the people that we're serving at the Opportunity Kitchen do not have that. They do not have a list of calls that they can make and get help or get counsel or get guidance. And some of it is, unfortunately, through, the tragedy of their lives, they may have burned every one of those bridges that they used to be able to call. And so to have a program like the Opportunity Kitchen that provides, first of all, like you mentioned, the process in being dependable in showing up for class, the process in making sure you do the work that you've been asked to do, the process of making sure that you do things well, and not just, rush through something and put something on a plate. You're listening to Faith Alive. We're going to head to break and continue the conversation on the Opportunity Kitchen. We'll be right back.
Greetings in Christ Jesus, everyone. This is Bishop Daniel Thomas. As we continue our Living Christ Diocesan Capital Campaign, I know that many of you have already stepped forward with a generous investment in the future of our local church. Thank you for your generosity. Many more will be asked for your participation in the coming months as we move toward our overall goal of $65 million. Folks, already our pilot wave of parishes and our first wave of parishes have now, with only 33 parishes, reached 45% of our overall goal. Now we enter Wave 2 with 45 parishes, and next spring, Wave 3 with the same number of parishes. This diocesan-wide initiative provides opportunities to support important endowment, programmatic, and capital needs to preach the gospel and witness to Christ Jesus throughout our 122 parishes and pastoral ministries. These areas, folks, include strengthening our parishes, because the parish gets 35% of every dollar, supporting our clergy, increasing Catholic charity services, building upon and maintaining the excellence of our Catholic schools, restoring our Mother Church, and forming lay leaders with education and training for service to the faithful. Friends, this Living Christ campaign is seeing tremendous support, and I thank you if you've already made a pledge or a gift, and I invite you, if you've not yet done so, to do so when your parish goes into the wave for our Diocesan Capital Campaign, so that all of us may be caught up in living Christ throughout the Diocese of Toledo, because together we will maintain the vitality of our local church for this generation and beyond. God bless you, and thank you.
Now, back to Faith Alive with Rodney Schuster, Executive Director of Catholic Charities here in the Diocese of Toledo.
Welcome back to Faith Alive, and Happy New Year and Merry Christmas season to all of you out there. We are so blessed to have you listen to Annunciation Radio, and specifically to this program, Faith Alive. Our guests on our program today are Byron Wynn, who's the program coordinator for the Opportunity Kitchen, as well as our volunteer coordinator and also helps out at Helping Hands of St. Louis, and Saundra Irvine, who's our chef and lead instructor for the Opportunity Kitchen. And before break, we were talking about the people that are coming to the Opportunity Kitchen, and how we, not only through the Opportunity Kitchen, but through so many of our ministries, help people who come to us and going that next step, and not just treating people one size fits all. And so I think it's important that we do this too for this class. And I know, Saundra, you can comment on when people come to you in your class. I mean, everyone has their own story and their own challenges, and you treat it as, okay, I want to learn more about you, I want to get to know you, but we do have some work to do. And you've got to make that commitment to get that work done in order for you not only to be successful just for this class, but that's a life skill that no matter where you go, no matter what you do, you'll need in order to be successful. Talk a little bit about that mentality in that process.
Well, you hit on a really great point, and that is, we bring up to our students, we are practicing over 18 classes to be on time. Actually, our requirements that we put out to recruitment are to be on time, on time, on time. Sounds easy? Not all the time.
Not when you don't have a dependable car,
dependable
health issues,
all of this. So to be on time, to be in the present and focus, which we teach. I take years of corporate training. I was in the business sector long before I was a chef, of how to be in the present and focus. And it sounds easy, but over 18 classes, we teach how to focus and how to be in the present, as well as treating others around them in that 18-week class. It is a team. They come in, everyone's leery of each other, and by the end, they're getting rides with each other. They're getting together. We want everyone treated in there with kindness and dignity. We had a former military individual who had a lot of abuse, believe it or not, in the military from a whole bunch of reasons. Extremely efficient. And one day she said to me, she came in and I said, "How are you today?" And she said, "This is my safe place." Mm-hmm. And that's what we want, a safe place to learn. But they do work hard, as Rodney had said. It is a very hardworking program. But we want them to immerse themselves so they don't even realize it. And then we point it out to them at times. Look how far you've come. Look at this incredible product. So number 1 requirement, be on time. Number 2, be in the present and focus. Number 3, treat others with kindness and dignity. And number 4, which is a big deal, finish the classes. Finish all 18. And there is a concept called self-sabotage in the world of psychology. And some very successful people even engage in it at times. They'll get 2/3 of the way through and then they'll miss a class. Well, one missed class and we're all over it. And we can feel it. They're being successful and it's an unfamiliar feeling. They almost feel, I'm not deserving. And we will say, you deserve this. Do you believe it? Say it to us. I deserve this. And you hit a nerve because they'll just stare at you and they'll come back and say, I'm glad I'm back. So we're dealing on a lot of levels with a lot of things, but this is a very business-oriented class. This is not, let's poach some eggs and hang out for a bit. Very process-oriented. And to refer, if you were all listening earlier in the program, to the cardiac intensive care nurse, when we would start really, really getting into it after this first or second class, she said, "This reminds me of the medical profession, the way this is run, what we have to do." And we were glad to hear that. So we are approaching, to get back to your original point, the legacy of failure and poverty in most of the instances where they just don't know how to get out or have been slapped down so many times. Why get up?
or haven't been invited to the table. I
Yeah.
mean, we've got people that have never been on the front end, let alone the back end of a restaurant. And what's great is, Saundra tells the students, on time is late, early is on time. So we go in, we talk about, first thing, you have to be there early, put on your uniform, put on your work demeanor, and you're on stage when you're at work. It's a performance. Learning the process. You don't have to reinvent yourself every moment. Learn the processes of work, and then you can get a check and repeat. And then other things that Saundra does in the class to help them kind of leave some of their issues at the door is she'll go over the quote of the day. Different people, observations that they've had about living that may or may not directly relate to them, but over the period of the class, some of that will land. And then we go over a book of the day as well. Not to read the whole book, but to suggest that there are people dealing with adversity just like them. There's one, the Checklist Manifesto, the things they carried.
Yeah, we do some incredible books.
Incredible guest speakers that Saundra has great connections in the restaurant. I mean, we had Bill Yosis, who's... go ahead, Saundra.
Well, Bill Yosis is a White House chef. He'll come in on our big screen TV, which someone was nice enough to donate. Awesome. And he's from Toledo and came from moderate means and spends a lot of time with the students via Zoom. But I'm glad you brought it up. We do a quote of the day. We do a book of the day, and everyone gets frightened in the beginning. Do we have to read these? No. But I said, get the book out of the library, off a Kindle, whatever. Just read a couple pages here and there. The Checklist Manifesto I got because they teach that in MBA school. And when I was in school, we had to read it, and it's living your life by a checklist. It's written by an Ohio native whose parents came with no money from Pakistan. He is now a prominent foremost physician out of Boston. And it is how surgeons, pilots, and project managers run their lives and their business successfully through checklists. And this is how we talk to the students. I speak to my students and tell them straight up, I'm speaking to you like executives. I want you to think like an executive and act like an executive. So when they come in, and we, right out of the gate, share this with them, you're coming in with a toolbox with some tools, maybe a hammer, a saw, and some nails, and some routines and some good attributes. We want to enhance those, but we want to add a whole lot more to your toolbox so that, or your keychain. We do the keychain. So add the keys to open doors. So when we go over a book like that, we explain to them, if the surgeon doesn't go by the checklist, the patient can die. If the pilot doesn't every time go through check number 1 through 50, the plane could crash. And do you ever wonder, as a student, when you're driving by a hole in the ground that's a building is going up, how do they get that building up? But you can too. We want, I hate to use this word, this is a terrible word to use, but we tell them we're brainwashing you positively with all these good attributes over and over again. We have a lot of repetition. Yeah. We also invite anyone that wants to come in and take a look at the program anytime. They can drop by. Just give us a call.
You're listening to Faith Alive, and our guests this week are Byron Wynn and Saundra Irvine, and they're talking about the Opportunity Kitchen, one of the newer ministries at Catholic Charities, where we bring in folks that are at-risk students and help them with their culinary training through a 10-week class. But really, as you've been hearing, it's so much more than that. And, I think you were just talking a little bit ago about some of the folks that are in this class, and they often feel the burdens of shame and guilt of everything that has happened to them in their lives and how they are so, regretful of things that they've done and choices they've made. And yet you provide them hope through the Opportunity Kitchen. You provide hope in how they can change where they're at today and remove that fear that they have. And, that is just, to me, is so symbolic of the Catholic Church and the Catholic faith and the sacraments. And that, if you're carrying around any burden of shame or guilt for choices you've made, for transgressions you've made, that burden can be lifted off of you through these beautiful sacraments. And, of course, then we have the hope of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We just celebrated his birth. And so I love to look at all of our ministries through that lens to say, how are we providing that opportunity for life transformation? How are we showing people that we are the hands and face of Jesus to remove shame, guilt, or fear, whatever they're encountering, and provide that hope that, first of all, they're important and their lives matter. And we can play a role in getting them to that place where maybe they never thought they could get. And I think it's just a beautiful example of our ministry and the work we do.
I go over it at the graduation. It's something I've, in my walk of faith, kind of struggled with ever since I was a kid. It was like, in the Bible, there's, famine, pestilence, people being turned into pillars of salt. And yet, when Christ knew he was going to be on the cross, what did he do? He invited people down to a dinner. And if there wasn't, storms and everything, it was just, invited them to a table. And this is what we're doing with the program, is we're inviting folks to that table that might not have had that opportunity to speak with somebody from a faith community. I mean, we've got Pastor Chris from Glenwood Lutheran that comes over. We've had other priests that have come over and just sat and eaten, and kind of extended the fellowship and that welcoming. And there are a lot of people that are of means that don't have that and aren't being invited into a community. And
to show that they're important. And that they're a human being, and they're one of God's creation, and they're important to us, and that's why we spend that effort. That's why, we put that time and energy in to help them, because their lives are important as every single life that is on this planet, and we want them to know that. We want them to realize that, and we also again want to provide them that opportunity to get from where they're at today to where they could go.
Well, interestingly, we don't want to sound like we're pie in the sky, because we have students along the way that have failures within the program. But when we go and I don't want to use the word rescue, that's not the right term, but when we go and extract them out and make them get back to class, or something that they did maybe at an employer, there's failures, and if we were to say there wasn't, we'd be, here's the thing. How do you handle their failures? Because they look at you, and I've had students say, and you've heard it, Byron, say to me, I know you're disappointed in me. And I said, I'm not. Have I ever shown disappointment? Have I ever shown anything like that? And they'll say no. And I said, every day is a do-over. We want to try to minimize those mistakes. We want to try to learn from them. Do they make the same mistakes over and over? Do any of us? Sure, we all do. And finally we look in the mirror and go, that's enough of that. But we do carry the background and tenets of Christ, that because someone does something wrong, we don't throw them out.
Yeah.
That's not being Christian.
Yeah. We're merciful just as he is merciful, and we show them through our behavior, through our response to those, obviously we don't want mistakes to happen, but they're going to happen. We're all part of the human condition, and none of us are perfect. And how we respond to those are just so critical. And I think that when you're faced with it, front line, it's so important and so critical in how you are able to say, okay, got that. Let's try not to do that again. And for something that we can do to remove that either obstacle or temptation, will help you. But ultimately, you're going to have to do it. So we're going to talk about how we get students on board after break. You're listening to Faith Alive. We'll be right back.
Are you or someone you know hurting from a past abortion? Contact Project Rachel for confidential help in starting your healing journey. Please call 419-260-5811 or visit hopeafterabortion.org. God's mercy is abundant and waiting for you. Project Rachel is here to offer confidential help on your journey to healing.
The Annunciation Radio mobile app gives you instant access to live and on-demand programs so you can listen anytime. You can also record and send us a testimonial, prayer request, or even a hump day humor joke. Get the free Annunciation Radio app today.
Now, back to Faith Alive with Rodney Schuster, Executive Director of Catholic Charities here in the Diocese of Toledo.
Welcome back to Faith Alive. I'm Rodney Schuster, Executive Director for Catholic Charities in the Diocese of Toledo, and we are wrapping up this segment talking to Byron Wynn, who's the Program Coordinator for the Opportunity Kitchen, and Saundra Irvine, who's the Chef Instructor for the Opportunity Kitchen. And well, we've been talking about a lot of different things and people that we're serving and how we try to serve them. But one of the things that we haven't really talked about that much is how do we find students, or how can students find us when we have classes beginning? Tell us the process, Saundra, of if somebody's listening out there saying, "Gosh, I think there's somebody who would be great for being in this class." Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thanks for leading us in that direction. That's a great place to be. You can build the best program in the world. You can plan the best party. If you don't invite people.
If no one shows up.
I know. Yeah. So in the beginning, I would make appointments and we go around to all the major agencies, the medium agencies, the minor agencies, and tell them exactly what we do. And we thought, wow, we have this great program. There'll be waiting lists. They'll be banging on the door. How will we accommodate all this? And then we said, where is everybody? This is the very beginning. And what we realized was when we speak to the head of an agency or the section of the agency that would be able to be in touch to provide recruits, we then make an immediate appointment after that presentation with the caseworkers, the boots on the ground people. And that's what we learned. Those are the people that are giving the hand up and are helping. So we have a lot of great recruitment sources, anywhere from Lucas County Metropolitan Housing Authority has resident services managers, Glass City High School, just also Goodwill, Salvation Army, all sorts of programs. We are targeting people that have moderate to severe barriers. And again, a barrier could be, poverty, failure, legacy, former incarceration, trauma, abuse, any of that. I've had people call up and say, I want to learn how to cook. Where you work? I'm working at a jewelry store at the mall, making full rate. I don't think this might be the program for you. So we are reaching out and acting as a catalyst, as a launching pad. We are an empowerment program for those that fit that category. But we have worked very hard to establish ourselves with the agencies, and we're extremely proud over 5 years that all major agencies, including Lucas County, recognize us. And I don't say that to sound self-promoting. I say it that we really had to work hard. We have had all the agencies in 2 and 3 times, come through classes, come to our graduations, which we have a beautiful graduation at the end. And many of our students, don't let me get off on this, but many of our students, if they don't have a high school diploma or GED, we get them in those programs when they're ready for that. We're all about additional training, not just us. A lot of steps, small steps leading to big results. But we just are.
So if there is a student out there, a potential student out there, prospective student, or somebody who knows of someone who might be, what's the best way for them to find out, to perhaps get signed up, or to learn when they could attend? I know there's an application process and all that, so maybe share about that.
Right. Well, we're not exclusive in any way. We have conversations with people. We start on the phone with them for about 30 minutes. And again, we go over all sorts of things, but sustained employment is one of them. Many people will have everything that we would look for, but they say, well, I don't really want to work. Well, they're not quite ready. In the beginning, Byron and I would take literally people living in their cars. Then we decided if they come to us, we're going to get them hooked up with an agency, get them healthier mentally and physically, and then they come over to the Opportunity Kitchen. Because if you're living in your car, you may not be ready for an 18-class, intensive program. So they should call. I've thought about this. Rather than banter about phone numbers, A great way to capture that is efficient is to call Helping Hands of St. Louis and say, we're interested in the Opportunity Kitchen program, and they will give you the number to call.
Okay.
And we will respond right away.
And probably ask for Gabriel Skyver would be the right person to ask for.
Helping Hands of St. Louis, you've got their number handy?
No, we'll get it in a bit.
Yeah, we'll get it in a bit.
Or you can call over Catholic Charities at the Pastoral Center, which is 419-244-6711, and just ask for Daniel and say you're interested in the Opportunity Kitchen, and we can help you out. I also wanted to know, how can people help? My guess is there are people listening that probably might even be in the restaurant business, might be in the food service business, or might just want to financially support this ministry going forward. And I can tell if you want to help in that vein, you can go to CatholicCharitiesNWO.org, hit the donate button. There's you can note where you want it to go to if you want to go to the Opportunity Kitchen, or you can send us if there's still a lot of people who write checks, and we'll gladly take them here at Catholic Charities in 1933 Spielbush Avenue, Toledo 43604. But so I guess the question is, what else could you use help with? Are there volunteers? Is equipment, materials? What could you use help with?
We could definitely use volunteers, and if somebody wanted to do that, they can text to 419-318-7086, 419-318-7086. It might be sitting down with some of the students or helping in the class. But give us a call, reach out, and we'll try and match that up. We're always in need of equipment and funding.
Actually, the funding that we need now, we've got some great equipment. Eventually, as Catholic Charities evolves with their building of other sites, we'll have a little bit bigger kitchen. We're doing pretty well right now where we are. We could use a little bit bigger. However, that being said, we can use donations for staff. A lot of people say, well, I want to see a stove. I want to see 150 peelers and cutting boards and so forth. We have done a great job of amassing equipment and so forth. Still need a few things here and there. But where we are right now is staff. And sometimes people say, well, I don't know about giving money for staff. Someone has to drive the train. If you got to drive the train, and it's very important that we have additional staff.
So you mentioned volunteers. So could some of those volunteers fill those roles that are needed? And if so, what would those roles be? And how often would you need somebody to help? Is it once a week? Is it 6 hours a week? Is it once a month? I mean, what would be ideal in the way of getting help if somebody says, yeah, I'd love to roll up my sleeves and help you out?
Well, excuse me, I've dealt with volunteers for years for a lot of the things that I've done. And I always say, if you can give an hour a year, we'll take an hour. If you can give 100 hours, we'll take 100 hours. Anyone that's interested, let us know. We have all sorts of things that we can do. You don't have to be versed in culinary or social work or anything like that. We are a big family. Everyone that comes together that works with us loves being there, and those that have left come back to help. So it's a great atmosphere.
You listen to Faith Alive. Our guests are Byron Wynn and Saundra Irvine. We're talking about the Opportunity Kitchen. So just to give me a little more clarity or specificity, what type of volunteering task would be ideal for you to have? Like you said, even if it's an hour a week, an hour a year, but if people come, we want it to be a blessing for them and a blessing for us. So what would be, if you just had 3 roles that you'd say, man, I would love to have, person A for X amount of hours per week doing this.
So, and I'm a business person first and a chef as well. We love people that help clean up. And I know everyone says, well, that's cleaning up. It is one of the most important things. And you will see executive chefs of high-end restaurants hiding over at the dish tank, the dishwasher area, because it's a place of solace. But if toward the end of the day when we go to clean up, we would love to have people come for an hour. Come for an hour and a half to help clean up, and you can eat with us. Let me tell you, we cook amazing food. We're classically French culinary, and after about the 3rd class, there are quite a few dishes. The students take pictures. They marvel, and we tell them, look what you have done by working together. How you've grown. So we need someone to help clean up and work alongside, but you would break bread with us at 5:30 and then just help clean up.
What days of the week does this?
Monday, great question. Mondays and Wednesdays. We're there from 12:30 till 6:30, and the staff there till about 7:15. But if we had someone to help, even come for an hour and help put plates and dishes away, it's a great atmosphere too.
And that's at Glenwood Lutheran Church, which is in downtown Toledo near the Museum of Art.
Next door.
So again, if people are interested, Byron, how can they get in touch with you?
They can use text to volunteer, 419-318-7086, or go to the Catholic Charities website.
All right, awesome. We've got about a couple minutes left, and I think I just wanted to ask both of you any reflections or final notes that you want to share with the audience before we end this. It's been an awesome program. Byron, I'll let you go first.
It is a real blessing for me to be able to help change lives, and the ability to do that here at Catholic Charities, and to work with the prison ministry and work with supportive housing and some of the other things. This program, I'm very proud of, taking this from the back of a napkin and finding, Saundra, who took the idea and just put it into turbo. And I can honestly say this program will hold its own with any of the other similar programs nationally. And it's really a blessing to have here in the city of Toledo.
Awesome.
Focusing on for Toledoans and the folks in Northwest Ohio.
Saundra, final thoughts?
I think Byron will, support this as well. I've had a long career in corporate business, owned my own businesses, done all kinds of things, and it is my honor to finish my career by taking all the skill sets that I've really worked so very hard to develop, and like to share it with others, and it's my honor to share it. But I feel every day that I'm taking all these skill sets and really doing something with it, so that others can help stand up a little bit taller. And as he said, we're not a white knight program. We, I think, learn as much from our students.
Awesome. Thank you both so very much. Blessings on your continued success and work. You've been listening to Faith Alive. I'm your host, Rodney Schuster. And until next week, God bless.
You've been listening to Faith Alive with Rodney Schuster. For more information about Catholic Charities programs and services, visit CatholicCharitiesNWO.org. You can listen to this and other episodes anytime on demand on the Annunciation Radio mobile app and at AnnunciationRadio.com.